Hello everyone, just wanted to talk you through two trades which I took yesterday in a bit of detail here using the XO replay function, as well as getting you to understand the context behind taking these trades in exact detail. So let's not waste any more of your time. The first one being an SFP of the high, but I think it's also important to rewind a little bit because my intention wasn't necessarily to trade off of an SFP of the high today, but more so to be trading off of the low. The low came later on, but I still adapted my situation throughout the day to actually trade off of the swing failure pattern of this high. So let's break this down first. So what happened, and the reason this high is still a decent level of interest for me during the day, because why is it at that level of interest? I always start off with that. And if we're taking this high initially and then looking back a bit, you can see this is a gap in swing highs. I've been through this many times. Go back and watch a liquidity video. This is going to be highly referenceable towards this video. But you can see there's a massive gap in liquidity here, really all the way up towards here. Okay, you can see there's like no real swing highs. Maybe you've got a few internal stuff here. Okay, but mainly you've got a massive gap in price action. And with that, why is that important? That's important because let's say we did reclaim this, with volume, we saw acceptance above this level. What I would be looking for a large rally towards the upside, at least towards the next swing high, and no real rejection. So this is like the last place price can reject whilst taking the most local liquidity to see a reversal to the downside. Now, I didn't mention it on Twitter. Usually I do most days, so it's a bit of a coincidence I didn't yesterday, I guess. But we had a high hit rate level, throughout the day, which was actually coming in towards it was like $26,010. It was very intra, and therefore I wasn't really prepared to look and trade it. But after taking the swing failure pattern of the high, I was interested in looking at this level for a potential take profit one. So I'm not going to say to you I traded this second swing failure pattern, because I didn't. You had an initial swing failure pattern here, and I'm going to break this down using XO in a second, so don't worry. And essentially I ended up taking profit here 80% and getting stopped on the rest, which actually limited the actual final R I was able to get on this trade, which is what I want to talk about. So if we're just looking at again, this is again level of interest, this high being taken. Okay, and then from there we're really seeing the swing failure pattern to bring it back down here. But what actually happened at that high, etc., that led me to take this trade? Let's go over to XO charts now and break that down. Okay, so without getting you too confused with all these lines going on in this chart here, we're technically looking at like 26,190 region. So the level hasn't been taken yet, but you can see prices coming up towards it to begin with. And some things to note in terms of just understanding a bit of context here. You can see a ton of new longs opening. Open interest increasing drastically, again with positive delta. Open interest increasing drastically with positive delta. New longs coming into the market before the high is taken. Generally towards the high. I wouldn't say it's actually, these new longs are not really towards the base of the candle. They're more so coming in towards the higher end of the candle. You can see with 6.3 million within the value area, and another 6.8 million within the value area, again actually at the point of control this time. So if we just hit the play button again, we can see here, and I want to talk you through your entry, invalidation, etc., because you see a decent move up. Okay, and my thought process is just breaking this down in terms of understanding these two previous candles it's given me the opportunity to think to myself, okay, we have the opportunity to maybe trap these longs should we see a decent reaction at the high. Now, first thing to note, I haven't taken the short trade yet. I take it a little bit prematurely. I'll show you why in a second. But the first thing to note is you've seen a few more liquidations come in. This isn't necessarily, I didn't mark this down as liquidations within my journal tags system, but it was still in the back of my mind that there's a few liquidations coming into the market at this point. We see the move towards the upside. I'm pre-anticipating a trap value area. And at this point, this is like just before this point here, where we came up to the, this is something I always discuss, but just before we had taken the open. So I'd entered just before here, really around here. It was like 26,175. I can get my exact entry in a minute. But it was literally between the open and the previous high had been put in. The open of the candle on the previous high. I was around here. With the invalidation again being just above the value area high. I didn't have it above the high, the value area high of that candle. Okay, and then we can see the play button again. You can see it sees a bit of a move up. I was kind of dwindling in around that break even for a bit there before it then drops. You can see, let's rewind this a bit. Okay, and at this point you can see here you've actually seen a trap value area. Okay, you've seen the trap value area into that level of inefficiency, and you've also seen extended delta. This was like one of the reasons I was really confident with this trade. At this point, you've got your level of interest. You've seen your volume spike. Okay, at this point the likelihood of trapping these longs is greatly increased. You then see an extended delta where you can see 2.4 million is also going to be trapped at the very high of this candle, essentially because you've closed away from it. The value area is most likely where the delta is actually going to be, but the extended delta is actually 2.4 million positive. You've closed down here, invalidation at value area high. I was looking down towards that 26,010 region for my take profit. Now, initially, I was thinking to myself, I should hold it towards the low, looking for the overall lows to be taken. I'll get to this next trade in a minute. But overall, I ended up taking it down towards that. I can't go over the high hit rate level yet and give you the exact reasoning for it. That's just part of the private nature of this, I guess, to be honest. But it was really, made sense to take a large percentage off there really, really shortly, because basically within like 20 minutes of this occurring, or 10-15 minutes, you had a large news event. And I didn't want to place my bets that it was just going to continue seeing follow through, because I knew there was the potential to see like a massive rise to the upside. Therefore, I wanted to be kind of flat going into any sort of news event. Therefore, looking for the closest possible TP region made a lot of sense at that stage. So hitting the play button, you do come down. The overall R I got from this trade must have been like 1.6. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every trade's like a 2R, even though I do aim for something around that. It ended up being like a 1.6R finalized, which is still a winning trade and great. But you can see here how, just upon that news event occurring, you do come down, you take 26.10 roughly, around here. You then see the move to the upside, which, gives another massive swing failure pattern. At this point, I've hit 80%. The remaining 20% is stopped at break even, neutralizes it to a 1.6R. I don't re-enter on this point at this point, and I'm only really then interested in looking for the lows to be taken that I'd mentioned earlier. So again, you take the high hit rate level hit, news event occurs, another spike to the upside, okay, and then you see this massive move to the downside. And I'm going to talk you through the second trade, because this is the one I'd actually, I was actually speaking quite largely about on Twitter throughout the morning hours, giving my plan. More so, I was looking for this low to be taken for a rise. I'm going to talk to you exactly why I was interested in this low and how I executed and used the invalidation. But that's the first trade, 1.6R, based off high hit rate levels. This one, you're going to be able to understand even more details. Hopefully, the invalidation execution standpoint in this one made a lot of sense. 80% taken off before news event because I want to go flat leading into any sort of news events generally. And I got stopped out, and then I ended up taking the level of interest. So let's break down this second trade now. Okay, so in similar fashion, leading up to this second trade example, this is more my favorite one, to be honest. And I'll tell you why in a second. But essentially, look here. So you've got your one low here on the chart, second low here on the chart, and then you've got the gap in price action. But you might be thinking, okay, it's just similar to exactly what we saw at the high. No, in my opinion, yes and no. The reason of this interest was so significant for me. If I put on highs and lows here, this is just a daily lows indicator. I've been over this within my liquidity video, so go and watch that. Will be linked at the end of this video in the play cards. But you can see here really, really clear. This was like such a insane level for myself, and wow, I love this, and I've seen it so often. You got one daily low here, another daily low here, and then you've got like kind of liquidity below it to the next daily lows all the way down here, where it's cleaned up all the price action. This low here has cleaned up all price action, in my opinion, that needed to be cleaned up. You then got two resting daily lows close to each other, taken out with a potential swing failure pattern. I'm interested in this low for a trade, okay, to look for liquidity to be taken and see a rise to the upside. Now, obviously, it's weekend, which I got into this trade really, really quite well. Not stopped out of it. I'm still in quite a bit of it now, actually. Not too much, but nonetheless, the process still applies the same to any trade going forward. Now, two daily lows really close to each other generates a lot utmost liquidity, and you want to basically look for the level of interest being the furthest one away once max liquidity is taken at that point. Again, I covered this really drastically even more within my liquidity video, but again, I'm covering it now for trade breakdown sake. So we've discussed the level of interest. If we lose it, it doesn't make sense. I just really like this level because of the two daily lows placed there. So if we just go on the daily time frame, what I mean here is, if we just hide all of this, is you have just here one daily low, two daily lows. Let me just highlight it here like that. One daily low, two daily low, higher low, higher low. That is where the liquidity is. You've taken that, and now you're seeing a little bit of a bounce, and that's what I was interested in trading. Now going back to like the 5 minute, 15 minute, how did I execute upon this trade? Let's go over to XO charts, because I think it's again a really, really nice one to be executing from. So leading into this final trade breakdown here in discussion to XO charts, we obviously saw that SFP of the high coming down into our level of interest. Again, all of these trades really derive off a level of interest, as I always will say to you before. And I'm always giving you the context to why that level is interesting to me is in terms of a level of interest. This case, it was really, really clean. I really like this one. The only thing it didn't have was a trapped value area, but it's not necessary on every single trade. So let's break it down. Why you're coming down to a level of interest. Again, I've highlighted it. It's around 25,791. I've tried to match up as good as I can using Exo's Ray tool. And you can see down here, you sweep the level of interest, okay? And at your level of interest, by the way, this is on the 5-minute time frame. Just look on the left-hand side, top left. If you ever do have any, worries there or queries on the time frame and tick size I'm using, just check up there. Then you can see you swept the low, and 5-minute swing failure pattern simply just wick below, close above. However, not open interest, volume 18.3 million. That's a clear volume spike in correlation with the last 20 candles or so. You then seen a liquidation. This one was tagged as liquidations. Look at this. Even there's liquidations coming into the level, 12, 27, 46,000, usually 27, 30,000 plus is what I generally do, or around that region. I will tag it as liquidations trade. You can then see that, you wick down, close above. And as soon as I see that, boom, I posted it on this one on Twitter. I'm literally entering as soon as I see that candle close. How am I entering? Again, I've done a video on how I enter at limit every single time using it in Silico terminal, basically laddering in my orders within like a 0.1% range to get the best entry possible using limit orders all the time. Again, invalidation being below the point of control, even if it's just this small amount, point of control / value area low in this case, this small amount can increase your final R, and that's what I'm trying to do every single time, increase my bottom line with just these small methods as such, okay? So obviously, again, you saw, entry, invalidation, well, my entry was actually really good on this one, I would say, towards, this green wick of the candles where I entered. Entry, invalidation, saw a decent move to the upside, okay? And again, overnight, I ended up hitting a take profit as you took, where is it, if I can find it? Was overnight towards here. I took my first TP hit, and that was 65%. So I'm still in the 35% of this trade. Really just seeing how it's going to go. I don't really like holding trades into the weekend, but because I do feel, and I've seen this before, where these swing lows can hold more, so I can see it running from here, further towards the upside. With that being said, regardless of the trade outcome, I'm here to share with you the actual thought process and everything as such, as I'm taking these trades, using the entry and validation and the context behind them, because even if this trade now loses and I end up only making like a 1R from it, because I've taken 65%, I've taken a decent amount off. Even if I end up, it comes out, flattens me out, and I end up making 1R, I would still take this trade again and again, because I know over the course of the long term, it's going to make me profitable using the same strategy, and it's not just about one-off trades that end up making 3, 4, 5R. That are the ones I'm meant to be showing you. I'll show you every single trade. Hopefully you found this valuable.